So let's get going on the sales drive home. My name is Dennis. Thanks for joining me. This is the Sales Drive Home. You can reach me. Email dennis@thesalesdrive.com. Let me know what you're thinking. Give me some comments. Give me some suggestions on what to talk about, and we will do that as always. So today is Tuesday. Only three and a half days left of the month. And what are you gonna do? Is there a way with 3.5 days left to pull out a month? I guess it depends on where you are, who you are, and what you're doing. So as a salesperson, yeah, there's a way. 3.5 days left, you can pull out a month in 3.5 days. Assuming that you've been working and you just have hit some dead ends, that's okay. If you've been working and you got stuff in your pipeline, then there you go. You can do it. If you're managing a department, if you got your sales department and you're a sales manager, and you know, same thing. Yeah, you can still pull out a month. You know, you can pull out gross, you can pull out volume. You can still do it as long as you've been working all month and you just, for whatever reason, have come up a little bit short. You can still do it. So, you know, yeah, 3.5 days ain't much, but that's the beauty of the sales business, right? You never know what's coming down the pipeline unless you know what's coming down the pipeline. And that's really the key, isn't it? The key is keeping that pipeline full. And so shout out to Dave Sickich. Dave, I worked with Dave for a long time. Dave used to always train, and he used to always train on the funnel. Every sales meeting he ever had his whole life talked about the funnel. And you know, you gotta have things going in the top of your funnel so the stuff comes out the bottom eventually as sales. So as you think about that funnel concept, there's a lot of things that go into that. And as a salesperson, yeah, you just always want to be putting prospects and putting possibilities into the top part of your funnel so that wide funnel that you've got is always filtering people down. So you always want to be doing that as a salesperson, as a sales manager, as a sales team. You always want to keep stuffing, just putting stuff in your funnel. And that means a lot of things, doesn't it? That means that I always need to be busy. I always need to be talking to people. And we always need to be concerned with, you know, where's that next customer coming from? Because if I'm waiting on my marketing team, if I'm waiting on my sales team, if I'm waiting on whatever I'm waiting on, stop it. Stop waiting. You can't wait and just think things are going to fall in the top of your funnel and come out the bottom as a sale. So you always need to be working, and that includes, you know, expanding your reach digitally, expanding your reach networking wise. You always want to be, you know, just always talking, always networking. And if you continue to do that and you fill up your funnel, then you come to the end of the month with 3.5 days left, and yeah, you can still pull it out. But if you're not putting stuff in the top of the funnel, and that's where you're starting at right now today, then it becomes tough, right? It's hard because I'm hoping things pop out the bottom of the funnel, but they got to make it all the way down. So how do you expand that? How do you get that bigger funnel so that you can get more coming out of sales? You got to be smart about it. You have to continue to work new prospects, but you also need to be working through customers that you've sold. And you know, some guys are really good at selling a customer and then miraculously, without hardly any effort on their part, 2 years later, 3 years later, that customer calls them back and says, hey, I want to come buy a car. or I want to come buy a house, or whatever it is that you're selling. How does that work? Well, it's not miraculous. It works because they made an impression on a customer, and that's why those sales happen 2 years from now, 3 years from now. But making the impression is a big part of it. If you're a salesperson who has that personality, who has that energy, who makes the impression on a customer, yeah, they're going to remember you. But it's not always a sure thing. And I think in our line of work, lining up as many sure things as possible is super, super important. Because look at the past 6 months. Things go up and down, don't they? You never know what's going to happen. Hell, the first 3 months of this year, things were banging, right? We were just booming along. It looked like sky was the limit. And then, obviously little market fluctuations happened, and here we are. Some of us have been continued to work. Some of us have continued to be successful. Some of us have not been continuing to work and continuing to be successful. And some of that has to do with the local restrictions that you may have. Some of it may be inventory, being able to have vehicles to sell. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But what we've found is that the cream is kind of risen to the top, because most dealerships have stopped advertising. There's some that have continued to advertise, but most dealerships stopped advertising. Most dealerships are having inventory issues. So the people that had that base to rely on, those are the ones that are successful. So to do that, you need to be methodical about your approach to continuing to put things in the top of the funnel. That means following up with sold customers. That means making more than one phone call every 3 years. That means making continuous phone calls with people, because not only are you trying to ensure that return sale later on, but you are also trying to mine that prospect for referrals. And referral business is super important. Referral business is really what can drive the difference between rising to the top and not. So if you've continued to do that and continued to gain referrals, then you've probably been successful. So you have to remember that funnel has to stay full. It's got to continue. You have to keep putting stuff in that funnel. So you have to do that. Yesterday, a successful day where I am, and but today's a whole different day. And if you are not continuing to look at what am I doing today to prospect, what am I doing today to put things in my funnel, you're done. So just keep that in mind. Just keep grinding on it. 3 days to go. You can still do this. Talking about follow-up yesterday, we talked a little bit about, at the end of our conversation yesterday, about a holistic approach to our dealership. And when we talk about that, it's and I went home and looked it up. So holistic is HOLISTIC. Holistic, what I'm talking about, and I guess I can't trademark it because somebody else is already using it, but holistic is WHOLEISTIC. Whole dealership. And it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you do, where you are. So if you've got, if you're in sales, you need to be thinking holistically. And that goes back to filling up your funnel, actually. We can tie those things together. Boom, segue, yeah. No, what we can talk about is that regardless of what we do at the dealership, we need to be understanding that if we sell something, there's probably some kind of service or maintenance that goes on with that product. Wouldn't you agree? So when I sell something, I'm not done. If I continue to follow that customer through that maintenance cycle, through that service cycle, then guess what? There's my follow-up. There's my continuing to put things in the top of my funnel. There's my ability to ask for referrals. All of that is happening because I've continued to follow that customer through their cycle. And that's not easy, because I tell you, in a car dealership, one of the hardest jobs out there is in our service department. Our service department, I tell you what, that's a hard gig. Service advisors, service managers, even technicians, those are all hard gigs. And sometimes if you're dealing with your customer through that process, you're involved in those hard spots. 6 months after I sell a vehicle, the air conditioner doesn't work, and the customer brings it in and service can't figure it out. If I'm involved with my customer, if I'm right there with them, it may not be comfortable, but that's what we do. That's how you build these relationships. So you have to think of these things holistically. Talking about advertising, that holistic approach to advertising. Yeah, yesterday, woo-wee, there we go. Yesterday we talked about advertising for sales and service and parts and body shop and detail shop, whatever, but advertising for the whole dealership. And advertising for the whole dealership means more than just saying, this is Jimmy's Ford country and we got parts and service, but let me show you 22 different sales specials. It means a concerted effort, mail, phone calls, if you do radio, if you do television, man, you got to make all that stuff count. And so today we were talking about, we had our ad budget meeting today, talking a little bit about August and getting August going. We got some stuff already planned, but we were just putting some stuff together. And when you talk about what we are spending on advertising and everything else, again, those departments don't come up unless you bring them up. You have to talk about every department for the whole entity to be successful. So what are good ways to engage with those customers? How do you attract that service business? How do you attract parts business? Well, we mentioned a little bit yesterday that when you turn on TV and you watch certain shows, I mentioned NASCAR yesterday, but when you watch certain shows, you see all kinds of ads for Napa Auto, or you see Discount Auto Parts, or whatever the company is. But all of those companies are advertising, and what they are advertising is some real simple things. One of the companies, one of the parts houses, advertise that you can come in and they'll give you they'll check your engine light. So if your engine light's on, come on in, they'll hook up their scanner, tell you what it is, and tell you what parts you need. Well, that seems pretty simple. Why can't we do that? Well, There's a couple reasons why we can't do that. The first reason is that nobody wants to do it. That's probably the biggest reason, don't you think? You have to have somebody available who can do that. So, who can do it? Some stores where you're turning out ROs and you're just cranking ROs every day. Maybe your service advisors don't have time. But does somebody in your parts department have time to do that? I mean, Napa or Discount Auto or whoever it is that has that, they talk about that all the time. I mean, they found somebody to do it. They're advertising it. They say, "Hey, come to this store and we'll hook up our scanner and we'll tell you what's up." So if they can do it, why can't we do it? Interesting question, huh? So that might be a good thing. Then we can talk about, so you've got that. Everybody always falls back. I think that if you don't have a lot of experience in advertising to service and parts people, and creating those messages, then you're gonna, the easiest thing is, what's the discount? Oh, let me do a $19 oil change. Oil changes are expensive. So at Ford right now, the Works oil change, so the Works package includes an oil change and tire rotation, all that other stuff. But cost on that is expensive. And so to say, hey, because if you throw out a $39 oil change, is that really attractive to people? Are they going to come for $39 oil changes? I mean, you can try and explain it away and tell them, oh, we use the synthetic oil, we use semi-synthetic, that includes this, that includes that. But my camera fell down. Well, it didn't really fall, but just a little mount slid. Hey, so, is that really a thing? So really, to attract people's attention on an oil change, it's got to be cheap. I mean, $19, $24, and guess what? You're not making any money at that point. At that price point, you are a loser. So what is the message? What kind of message can you use for a service and parts customer? Man, I got to leave you with that question. I got to leave you with that cliffhanger. Here I thought I didn't have anything to say, and I filled up the whole drive. So I'm on the ramp. I missed my exit, but I'm on the ramp making the turn. So I am out. So tomorrow, I guess we're going to talk about some messages for service. We are going to talk about some avenues for service advertising and parts. And that's what we're going to do. So again, thanks for joining me. My name is Dennis from thesalesdrive.com. And as always, peace.